going to face the day. We're together and now we're here to say, united we will be the change.
Hi, and welcome to Above and Beyond, Bridging the Gap to Accessibility and Inclusion. I'm your host, Celeste Licorice, and Above and Beyond is a show where we talk about the people, places, and opportunities that make our community a more accessible one for everyone. And today we have the opportunity to talk to Chad Pilo, who is a Hamilton teacher and musician and all-around inspirational guy. Now I have a bio on him, which I'm going to read off my phone because it's pretty awesome. Chad.
It's because I wrote it.
Because you wrote it.
Yeah.
There you go. Chad is 35, is a teacher, musician, and performer, born and raised in Hamilton. Chad was diagnosed with cerebral palsy as a result of premature birth, but has never let his disability affect his positive outlook on life. Growing up, Chad was active in his community, serving as spokesperson for the CYO, that's Catholic Youth Organization, attending Easter Seals camps, and participating in the sport of sledge hockey for 20 years. He earned his diploma from Mohawk College in music performance in 2005, his Bachelor of Arts from McMaster University in 2008, and his Bachelor of Education in 2011. In 2012, Chad was hired by the HWCDSB, where he worked as an elementary arts teacher before transitioning to his current role, where he teaches music at Bishop Ryan Catholic Secondary School and serves as a musical director and advisor for Bishop Ryan's 4 performing ensembles. Chad has been married for almost 12 years to his wife, Crystal, and has 3 beautiful children, Caleb, Cadence, and Colby.
That's it.
Welcome to the
my
show.
life.
That's your life. We're done.
Yeah,
We've done it all. That is totally awesome. So I want to get started with hearing about your life, like just from the time you were born.
Sure. Where do I start?
Yeah.
Well, as I sort of mentioned there, so I have a diagnosis called cerebral palsy, which can be caused by a lot of different things. In my case, it was caused by premature birth.
Okay.
I was born extremely premature, and
extremely, like how many weeks premature?
Oh gosh, I don't know the math. My mother does. Yeah. My birthday's at the end of September, and I was supposed to come mid-November. So
okay, so a couple months. Yeah.
So I was diagnosed, I suppose, at an early age, probably around 2 or so, as I understand now as a parent, and all those benchmarks you normally look for as a kid, right? When those sort of started being delayed, we made some appointments with family doctors and so on and so forth. But anyways, it's been a crazy ride, but I love it. I wouldn't change it for the world. And it's funny because that's one of the things that you hear, and you hear a lot from different people in conversation. Would you change things? Would you do things differently? Don't you wish you were born able-bodied, as I use that in quotes?
Yeah, in air quotes, yeah.
And the reality is I wouldn't change a thing because I am a product of all of my life experiences, and that's what everybody is.
Exactly.
And I don't see obstacles. I see challenges, and I know that they're going to be beaten, and it might look differently, and it might take some time, but we're going to get there.
We're going to get there.
Yeah.
So what was it like growing up in your household?
Yeah,
do you have siblings?
Yeah, I do. I do have an older brother, and that was part of the reason, perhaps, why I've always remained so positive. My older brother was even more premature from birth than I was, and his diagnosis of CP is much more severe. So my older brother, Daryl, is nonverbal and needs to be fed, needs to be changed, the whole 9 yards.
What's the age difference between you?
He's 6 years older than me, so he will be 41 later this year.
Yeah.
And if memory serves me, he was probably given by doctors in the probably past his 10th, 11th birthday, which is pretty incredible to see. I've seen my older brother he's lived at a home, Ragel home, for quite a while.
Yep.
And in going up and visiting him, I have watched a lot of his roommates pass away. And that's a huge piece of perspective for me to understand that he's beating the odds every single day, even just by being here.
Yeah.
And so I'm a product of a home where both my parents, had only challenged children.
Right. So it's just the two of you.
Just the two of us. Yeah, myself and my older brother. Dad was the 32-year steel man who worked to support his family while my mom was home with the 2 boys.
Yeah.
And so
So how did your parents raise you? To be so. There isn't any negativity coming through.
I don't. I'm not pessimistic because it won't work anyway.
Yeah.
I've been called the incurable optimist before. It's funny because very different people, my mom and dad. I honestly believe that if it was up to my mom, she would have raised me in a bubble and, protect me because that's that maternal thing that you want for anybody. And my dad was very much, he's going to need to learn to figure things out, right? I tell a story often of of my dad tossing me into the water so that I could learn how to swim. Not done he was right there. He was going to come and, but this is a metaphor for my life. It's going to look different. He's got to figure it out, right?
Yeah.
And it wasn't a tough love situation at all. It was my dad just saying he is going to face challenges and he has to have resilience to overcome them. And I think that is a massive almost problem. I don't want to use the word problem. It's too much, too negative. But I think as a teacher, an educator, we need to build resilience into our young people. And if we're not doing that, then when they don't get the job or when life hands them, these ideas of these sports tournaments where everybody gets a medal and everyone's happy, it almost makes me sad in a bit, because I think there's a way, and maybe that's my 20 years in disabled sports, there's a way to lose and lose properly and lose with dignity and lose with sportsmanship and all of that, and to build that resiliency so that when life hands you that, I don't want to say the lemon and lemonade line, that's too overdone,
so done, right?
You have to know how to overcome those challenges. And
so were there challenges like for you, like you played, was it sledge hockey?
Yeah.
What is sledge hockey, first of all?
Wow, you got another show? So sledge hockey is a sport for people with physical and developmental disabilities, and it has been played in Canada, going back almost 50 years, I think.
Yeah.
Started in Norway. I started playing when I was 8 years old.
Yeah.
I played to the time I was 28, and the only reason I stopped is by then I was a father of 2, and I couldn't be spending 2 nights a week at the rink. But it's essentially a full contact sport for people with disabilities. It's a Paralympic sport, and an incredible. Go on YouTube and Google sledge hockey. You're going to find a bajillion things, and you're going to go. And I think that was part of the passion of that sport. Is oftentimes when you talk about sport for people with disabilities, you get that connotation of, oh, isn't that nice that you guys can go do that? Isn't that nice that you guys can do that? And then people would watch a game and they would see how brutal it is. And it's hockey. It's full contact.
Yeah.
We're hitting, we're banging, and we're out there competing as anybody else would, because although we're skating on sleds and propelling ourselves with our arms, it's full contact, Canadian boy hockey, right? And part of those learning experiences, one of my favorite things to do with hockey was always play exhibitions against stand-up hockey teams. So we would play the rep teams, we put them in sleds, and we would go and play them, right? And I think naturally you think because you're a good hockey player, everything's going to be great. And then you realize, wait, I have to skate using my arms. I have to shoot with both hands, which is something I was terrible at. I have to
but you did it.
I guess so, right? But those were great learning experiences, because that's how people truly, it's another level of understanding. It's like when somebody says, I understand the hardships that you face more now because I had to spend this amount of time in a wheelchair or this, and now I see how accessible our city is, but maybe not this much.
So it kind of builds a little bit of a sense of empathy and understanding.
Absolutely. It's that age-old mentality of walk a mile in somebody else's shoes, right?
Yeah, or sled down a rink in somebody else's place of hockey. Yeah. Oh, this is great. So we're going to take a short break.
Sure.
We'll be back with more Chad Pilo right after this.
Hi, I'm Greg Lenko, host of Hammer Happenings on Cable 14. Join me to find out about events going on in your area, or if you just want to see my funky socks, tune in and watch and get involved in our community. If you've got an event you'd like to see featured on Hammer Happenings, make sure to contact us by visiting www.cable14.com/request-access. I know it's a lot to take down and a lot to remember, but you can do it really easily just by looking at the screen. Okay, see you soon.
And we're back with more Above and Beyond, where we're having an interview with Chad Pilo, who's a Hamilton Wentworth Catholic District School Board teacher, musician, and all-around great guy.
I go, well, it's a mouthful there.
Yeah, it's a lot. So I want to move on to talk about what it was like for you growing up as a student in the system here in Hamilton.
Sure, yeah. So I could say honestly that it had its challenges, but it was, again, it was a metaphor for my life. Every challenge is an opportunity.
So where did you go to school?
So I grew up going to school in the Hamilton Catholic system. I went to elementary school at a tiny little school called St. David, which is no longer in that site. That site is now townhouses, which is I took my wife to see where I went to school, and I pulled around the corner, and all of a sudden there was houses.
There was
there.
houses.
So I went to St. David Elementary School, which is now in a much bigger site.
And which area of the city is this?
So St. David Elementary School is actually the old Cardinal Newman West. It's Cromwell Crescent, so Nash Road in Queenston
Oh, okay,
area.
so East End City, yeah.
Yeah, so I actually grew up going to an elementary school that was outside of Encatchment because of accessibility purposes.
Okay.
So my school that I was supposed to go to on paper wasn't accessible at the time, so I was bused outside of the city, outside of my sort of area of the city to
Right.
go to school elsewhere. And then after that, I chose to go to Bishop Bryan High School, where all my friends are going, like a lot of current elementary school students do in the transition to high school. I want to go where my friends are going.
Yeah.
And again, at that time, Newman West wasn't accessible, so it was another easy choice in that the Albright Road site of Bishop Bryan was an accessible building, so that was an easy choice as well. And my students' experiences were always really great. I think, like everybody, kids will fear what they don't understand. And so certainly there was some moments of bullying, things like that might have happened, or kids making comments around the playground and things like that. A lot of that.
How did you insulate yourself against that? Because bullying is a huge challenge.
It was tough.
For kids
Yeah,
now.
it still is. I often just tried to find strength within myself. I was lucky enough to have some really great teachers in my life. One of which is David Hansen, who is actually our director with the Catholic Board. He's the director with the Catholic Board, yeah. Yeah, he's an unbelievable man who taught me in grade 7 and grade 8.
Wow.
Those were 2 difficult years for me because it's that age where kids are just really starting to poke the bear, and he was unbelievable in, very simply, including me in everything that anybody else would do. I remember going outside to play tag, which was you want everybody running, and of course the kids would run away, and I couldn't catch them. So now what do? Well, Dave Hansen came up with the idea of, and he probably, I don't know if I should, I don't know if it would fly today, let's just say that, but he says, I'm going to give you tennis balls, and you're going to throw a tennis ball, and when the tennis ball hits the student, they're going to be out.
They're going to be out.
Right? So I used to load my wheelchair with tennis balls in my spokes. And like the Terminator, I'd be out there on the playground, just like grabbing a tennis ball and throwing it. You know, probably wouldn't fly now. Sorry, Dave, but
it was a way.
But it was. I'll never forget it. And another thing that he did, I mentioned my my youth growing up and being an advocate for the CYO. He tried so hard to get me to play CYO basketball because I was an active basketball player, 7th and 8th grade, playing in my wheelchair, and he really went to bat really hard for me to play ball with my friends. And again, now looking back as a somewhat mature individual, you understand that there's huge safety risks around a person in a wheelchair on the court with everybody else running around. So I understand the decision there. And I have no ill will towards it. But
at the same time, those decisions probably gave you the confidence and the courage that you needed to keep going and to know that.
Summer camps at Easter Seals and CYO were huge. And then really my confidence really hit the gas in high school when I went to Bishop Bryan and started studying music for the first time.
Did you play an instrument or did you sing?
I didn't at the time. I was always a singer from the time I was 4 years old. I started to play guitar because Dave Hansen, who I mentioned before, used to play for us as a class. And so I have fond memories of him sitting us down and playing for us. So I started to play guitar for that reason. And I got into music in grade 9, and the rest is history. In 11th grade, I met an unbelievable man, and yes, I'm going to say your name on the air. Dave Tabone is my colleague and friend at Bishop Bryan now. And his energy was absolutely infectious.
So he was a teacher at the time?
He was, still is actually, and that's part of my dream scenario is the man that taught me and inspired me to become a teacher is now my teaching partner at Bishop Bryan High School.
That's amazing.
So it's kind of a full circle thing where hopefully I get to carry the torch there and continue
when
that
did
legacy.
You know that you wanted to be a teacher?
16 years old.
You knew from then, so you would have been like grade 11?
I remember sitting, watching Dave teach this lesson on cadences or something that was normally boring for everybody else. And the way that he taught it, I was just so inspired by his passion and his ability to make something so real and tangible. And it lit a fire in me that I pursued. So
you knew then you wanted to teach and you wanted to be a music teacher.
I did. It was a clear vision for me right from the start, and I sort of took the longer way to get there, and graduating from Mohawk College first, and then McMaster.
So what did you take at Mohawk?
Vocal. So I was a music student at Mohawk, and I was going to go to college as a trumpet player because at that time in grade 11, grade 12, I was playing some trumpet a lot, and I couldn't afford a horn. And so so Mr. Tabone says, well, you're a great singer. Why don't you just go
do vocals.
Do vocal.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I constantly instill in my students, we work with so many great singers at Bishop Ryan, and we're always telling them you need to try and be a complete musician, learn an instrument so that you can accompany yourself, so that you can perform for people without a band, so that you're not stuck relying on the 3 guys that show up and play the music.
Right. So did you perform in high school? Did you do
I did, yeah. So
were there any musicals? Like, did you guys do stuff?
Yeah, we were blessed. We've always had a really great program. Mr. Timon got to Bishop Ryan in 1999, and I know that because next year is the 20th anniversary of our program. And he helped to build our program into something really incredible. I did some musical theater and some performances, not to the scale that we have now. It's funny because our vocal group at the time when I was a student was maybe 50, which is still quite big when you think about it. But now our vocal group alone, the BR Expression, is 200 students, and
your music group is 200.
Our vocal group alone is 200 students. Yeah, we have 4 ensembles. We have our Celtic Beat Drumline, our Celtic Groove Jazz Band, our Celtic Fusion Concert Band. So all in all, our program is probably close to 300 music students.
That's amazing.
200 alone are in our vocal program. Yeah, so we are. We're incredibly blessed. We went to Nashville this year and actually had some incredible results down there. We went down there as the only Canadian school. We took 200 students on 4 buses on a 5-day journey to Nashville, Tennessee, and we ended up winning a gold in the vocal competition.
That's incredible.
So it was a pretty cool thing to do.
Yeah. So what does it feel like to be inspiring kids to do great things? Like,
it's funny because I don't think it's something you set out to try and do. I remember sitting with an ex-principal with our school board who's now an assistant superintendent, and she said, Chad, it was during my journey to try and get hired, and she said, Chad, we need to get you hired with the school board because whether you realize it or not, the kids will learn from you the second you wheel into the classroom. And that's something that just resonated with me because I've never thought about that. But then as I reflect back and think, teachers in wheelchairs or teachers with disabilities, I'd never had any. And it's funny, even a teacher alone using a wheelchair, I've literally met one. There's one other that I know of.
Do you have students that have different abilities?
Of course, and I'm gravitational towards them. It's like a beeline for me to go towards those students with exceptionalities or special needs and work with them. And music is so universal. It's such a confidence builder that it's incredible. It's easy to do with those students because everybody understands music on some level, right? And,
it is such a universal language.
True enough, and it's that level playing field, right? Where the student who has the disability and maybe isn't athletic or maybe isn't a highly academic person, maybe they like to sing, and maybe they don't even know they like to sing.
They don't know
this, but
you'll bring them out,
right?
Okay, hold that thought.
Yeah, of course.
We're going to take a little bit of a break. We'll be right back with more Chad Peel after this.
If you are ready to play, we are ready to pay. Kiwanis TV Bingo is coming your way. Pick up those $3 bingo cards at any one of almost 200 vendors around the Hamilton community. Tune into Cable 14 on Monday nights at 7 p.m. and win cash. Over $150,000 up for grabs this season. You won't want to miss it. Break a dabber.
And we're back with more Above and Beyond with Chad Pelo. So before the break, we were talking about your journey through the educational system. And I want to skip forward to you in Teachers College and graduation and getting hired and all that.
So it was Mohawk College, McMaster University, both in music, and then used that to apply to Teachers College, and sort of went from there. It was a crazy journey. It was a long journey, but I wouldn't change it for the world. In Teachers College, I became a father. While I was in Teachers College, I became a father of 2. My second child was born 6 days before I started Teachers College, which is, if I'm being honest, the absolute worst timing because for 6 months she was colicky, she was screaming. My wife is my hero because she would deal with that. But I was, on any given day in Teachers College, I was going to school from 7 till...
Where did you go to Teachers College?
So I went to Teachers College at a university satellite campus of an Australian school called Charles Sturt University, which had a satellite campus in Burlington, which is since shut down, because of the 2-year enrollment and things like that. So it was an intense 8 months. 6 of those months, my daughter had colic, and literally, if she was awake, she was screaming. So I would do homework from about midnight till about 3 a.m. and then get up and do it all. Because I think the challenge is you're at a school or placement during the day, and then I come home and I already have my oldest son. So you're spending time with your children because you want to so much, and you miss them while you're at school or work, and then I spent some time with your wife, and then she would go to bed, and now it's midnight, and oh right, I still have schoolwork to do.
You still have to do homework. So let's back up a little bit. You've mentioned your family, your wife, and your kids. Let me hear about how you met your wife and about your family.
Well, you want the real story of how I met my wife? No, I'm just kidding. The true story of the very first meeting with my wife is I met her in a bar. I'm a musician, and I was playing music, and
so you used to play gigs and stuff like that?
I do occasionally, the occasional sort of solo acoustic. At that time, I was playing in a 4-piece cover band, and my wife came out to hear us play through a mutual friend. We got introduced that night at the old Squire at Fennel and Upper Wentworth, and the rest, they say, is history. So we dated for a couple years, and then we were engaged for a total of 3 months. I was in the middle of third year undergrad at McMaster when I decided we were going to get married, and so I was a full-time student when we got married. And
so you don't take things easy.
No, it's a great conversation on a Friday when you tell your prof, I'm not going to be at school on Monday, and he says, why? So I'm getting married on the weekend, so I'm going to just take a day off.
A day off. I'll be back.
But yeah, she's incredible. I've been with my wife for almost 14 years. We've been married for almost 12, and 3 beautiful children. And it's.
So what are the ages of your kids?
So my kids are my oldest son. Oh, there they are. My oldest son will be 11 in November. My daughter just turned 8, and my little man Colby is turning 4 in February. So we're all spread out, and it's really interesting because I've mentioned earlier that you don't see yourself as role model. That's not a goal to be an inspiration or role model at all. It's just you just do you, and the fact that people see inspiration in it is awesome. One of the things that will forever blow my mind when I mention that I'm a married man with kids, and it comes with good intentions, the best of intentions from people. But the number of times that I've been asked if my wife is in a wheelchair too is staggering. Absolutely staggering.
Really? So that comes up as something that people would...
I guess. Maybe there's just an assumption that, that boy in a wheelchair must have a wheelchair wife, and they make wheelchair babies. But that's I don't really understand it.
Wrong.
My wife is twice the size of me. She's fantastic. But yeah, it's just funny that it's out there. And the more of those walls I can break down, the better. And the only way that those walls happen is through conversation. And I mean, the amount of awesome conversations that I've had with kids around my chair. I would always joke when I was supply teaching with the board that if I was ever not left plans or didn't know what to do, or I could literally answer questions about myself for 4 hours, and the students would just constantly have things to ask me.
Because people are afraid of what they don't understand.
Absolutely.
And then if you have all these societal walls that say it's not polite to ask, or you can't know, or whatever.
Which is, ask the questions. That's how you're going to find out, right? And I mean, sure, if someone doesn't know the answer or they're not prepared for the question, you might get an answer that they might shut down the conversation. I would always invite the conversation, because that's how people are going to learn. Right? They're going to learn through experience, and the more of those conversations I can have, the better. The more that I can show and model that my life just looks different. I joke all the time, half man, half machine. Right? It's like I'm shorter. That's it. There is a way to get everything done. It looks different, and that's okay, right?
And a good friend of mine says, Anthony says, person first. Like that's
person first. I feel like I know that Anthony fellow. Yeah, and it's so true. You're so quick to label, right? You're so quick to say the person in a wheelchair. No, it's a person who uses a wheelchair, right? And I'm not a soapbox person. I'm not that person to pick about.
You're too busy living life.
That's right. I don't play the politically correct game. I just worry about being me and putting the best me on display that I can for everybody, and showing everybody that everything is possible. It's literally the moment you tell yourself that you can't do something, you've already failed.
You've already,
That's it.
So what is it like for your kids? Like, how do they embrace their energetic dad in a wheelchair and with their friends and things like that?
That's a great question.
Right?
When my kids used to be at the playground, my oldest son, his starting spot, he would just run up to a stranger and he'd be like, "See that? That's my dad. He's a teacher and he's in a wheelchair." That was like, that's his 2 things. I was like, that's the starting point. I was like, you can maybe tell him I have a name, buddy, and tell him to come over and talk to me. But that's the innocence of a kid right there, right? I think that watching my children grow up has been the most beautiful thing, because my kids will go up to anybody on the parking lot, at the school playground, wherever. They will have conversations with anybody, because they know that we are all different, and that is the plan. Because if everyone was normal, the world would suck. That's literally what I tell my kids all the time, right? I think part of that is my older brother, their Uncle Daryl. They know that Uncle Daryl doesn't speak the way that normal people. Right. He speaks differently. He needs to be fed, right? And so we have those conversations all the time. And again, my life has taught me, I guess I'm blessed, because my wife has taught taught me a lot, but my life has taught me how to answer those questions, right? That everybody is born differently. Everybody is born with a purpose and a plan, and that we're all unique, and that's the point. That's how we celebrate and do this awesome thing called life. Yeah. You know, I think even in recent weeks, 2 of our best friends had this incredible little girl, my niece, named Brooklyn, and Brooklyn was born extremely premature and has Down syndrome and is facing lung issues and heart issues and digestive issues and all this stuff.
And
that
this is a family friend
just
of yours.
Our 2 best friends, that have had this unbelievable journey with Brooklyn, and so it's, you know, they're kind of raising Brooklyn to call me and call me uncle. And so it's amazing stuff, because I won't be an uncle biologically because my brother can't and won't have his own kids. So it's great to be able to experience life there. But it's funny because I think, again, there's a reason for all of this, right? And I think I don't have Down syndrome. I don't have the challenges that Brooklyn faces, but I've had enough. And I know the power of a positive outlook on life. And I know that whatever is planned for that little girl, that superstar, is bigger than I could ever imagine, right? Yeah. And I think that I have had to rationalize these things, and I guess any parent would. When you look at my parents who have had only 2 kids and 2 kids with severe physical disabilities. Well, why, right? Yeah. Because there's an opportunity to learn. There's an opportunity to grow.
So you're looking at it as a gift, not as a burden.
I said it earlier, I wouldn't change it for the world. I wouldn't at all.
Yeah. So if somebody were to ask you if you could have the opportunity to not have care.
Never. No, this is the plan. This is for me to bring a faith perspective into it. This is God's plan for my life, and I'm just on the journey. Yeah. So it's really cool. That's how I've had to rationalize and explain a lot. There has to be a reason. There has to be a plan and a bigger picture, right? And I think that everything that we face is not a challenge, it's an opportunity.
And I think, when you have what we consider challenges, or you're outside of what people perceive as normal, it forces you to dig deeper. I think it forces us to find a deeper level of connection to ourselves, to each other, to the world, and to decide how we're going to play that role. You are a shining example of someone who's done that and gone. You're literally above and beyond.
Hey, right? I feel like that's a good name for a TV show.
I think that for a TV show, perhaps. I think that there was something in the air that said, you need to be on this show. I mean, I'm excited for your students. I'm excited for your family. I'm excited for your life.
Awesome.
Are you still performing?
Yeah, there's the odd. It's fun. Yeah, there's always that. There's the odd gig that creeps up every now and then. But I mean, the reality is, as I guess anybody that's passionate about education, everything is my students first. So we've got these incredible opportunities coming up for 20 years of performing at Bishop Bryan, and some big things that always happen. We're so blessed to have the building that we do. We've got an unbelievable 400-seat theater with the same stage frontage as Hamilton Place, and so we put on these incredible shows. And I mean, I've always said, and I've been blessed.
Listen, you know what? We're going to have you back. We have run right out of time, but it has been an honor, a great thing to have you on the show with us today. Thanks so much.
Great to meet you.
Yeah. I'm going to close with a quote of inspiration. Disability is a matter of perception. If you can just do one thing well, you're needed by someone. And that's a quote by Martina Navratilova. Thank you for joining us. Tune in again next time to Above and Beyond.
On your way, walk past strangers' faces every day. Share a smile, it's all you need. You'll be just fine, you'll be alright. Put your hand in mine, and as things change, we're growing strong. We'll rise above it all.